Hey there everyone, and welcome to another episode of RPG Horror Story Cringe with D&D Doge. In today's episode, we have a buttload of shorter stories, ranging from cursed dice, bronies, sadistic dungeon masters, and much more. So, since there's a lot of stories today, we best get right into it. Surprise Brony by Reddit user Different Pattern 273. Some years ago, on our local game store's usual game night, all of the DMs had concocted an evil plan. We would set up like usual, but then when it came time to start, just get up and leave our tables to run something weird. It was April Fool's Day. The veteran DM ran players through a PBS dungeon to defeat Mr. Rogers. The new DM ran my players through an evil maze where they faced their own doppelgangers. And I ran a table of 40 to 60-year-old men through a D20 My Little Pony murder mystery. I had used an MLP pony creator to make ponies for everyone, and we had pony figurines that fit in medium creature stands. So I'm running this goofball adventure that revolves around solving the murder of Cheese Sandwich, a character voiced by Weird Al, which was an excuse for me to do my Weird Al voice, after attending his birthday bash. The problem comes when I repeatedly get interrupted by one player who keeps correcting me on My Little Pony lore. I've never seen the show, none of us have, but it turns out he's a huge brony. I'm berated for using a sheriff pony I found for the investigator. He's in the wrong kingdom. I'm told the changelings don't behave the way I have them. The geography is wrong. Every time any pony I pulled from the wiki is used, he drops the entire history of that character, and also tells us that there should be no murder. Spoiler, there wasn't a murder. It was all an elaborate prank, and the blood was ketchup. I have to stop the game and inform this guy that this game was created using all of the research effort that my time on the MLP wiki could provide me. Everyone else was having a good time. But man, that guy never shut up about the damn horse lore. We kinda had to start muscling him out of the way of things to just get things finished in our allotted time. The thing is, I kinda have the same annoyed reaction whenever a player lore dumps the history of the Forgotten Realms on me, whenever a history check is involved in the module too. So now I just think of them as Forgotten Realmies. Now, I'm not one to rag on someone for what type of media they enjoy. I mean, I don't really get the whole My Little Pony thing, but you do you. But for this player to get all upset at the DM of this obviously joke game about getting the lore of a cartoon horse show wrong to the point of interrupting constantly, I'd say that's taking things to an unhealthy obsessive level. Thankfully, it sounds like OP was able to see it through till the end, despite the constant calling out. Also, a side note, I so want to hear about the PBS game to defeat Mr. Rogers. I would have totally reskinned Control Person for him as Won't You Be My Neighbor. But anyways, let's move on. Pre-made character was not what I expected. By Reddit user Mr. Fishnix. In my college, there was basically a D&D club where you can sign up for several different one-shots and people enjoy it as a quick break from classes once a week. Now, during this time, I had to focus more on getting my homework done and didn't have the time to make a character. So color me surprised when a DM sign-up has a couple of pre-made characters with backstories and flaws. I thought that would be nice, and wanted to take one that apparently went insane from killing his friend, so now he was haunted by his ghost, but still denies his death. So, the week that everyone meets up rolls around, and I was expecting a character sheet at level 1. But nope. Instead, me and another guy who took a different character were given cue cards, basically making a character that I thought would be interesting into a basic NPC that the DM did not want to play. TLDR, DM offered what I thought to be an interesting character just to have someone else play an NPC that he couldn't bother with playing. It is a shame that DM would take such an interesting concept that would make for a fascinating character to play, and just turning them into an NPC, especially trying to pawn off the role-playing of that NPC on someone who wanted to play as a PC. I mean, What was that DM thinking when he posted that notice to the game club? He had to have known that people were looking to actually play. Man, talk about a tease. Let's move on. In our first campaign, a good DM made fun of killing player characters. By Reddit user Slime Project. Prior to this game, the entire group had almost no experience with D&D. We had 2 of my friends and me that previously played one homebrewed campaign over the course of 6 months with 20 sessions at best. Another friend that was completely new to the game and wanted to try it out, and our DM that also played in the previously mentioned campaign as a player. Our DM told us that he was running the starter campaign, Dragon of the Icespire Peak, mixed together with a homebrewed campaign. The campaign in general was really fun, and we always improved our playstyle every game, tried to metagame less during combat, and even started with role-playing at some point. Coming to the final boss fight of the main campaign, the DM decided that the encounter that was in the books was too weak, that it was boring, and not challenging enough. So he added 3 other pretty strong smaller enemies into the mix, and had the dragon awaken instead of being asleep. One round after the main fight with the ice dragon was over, and we also killed the 3 other goblins. So he decided to let a black dragon appear, and basically TPK the party, although we were heavily struggling throughout the first fight, even with our level being the max level of the campaign. For my death saving throw, I rolled a natural 20 and managed to revive 2 party members. Prior to this event, the players decided that they wanted to finish the campaign, even though the DM told us that he could have continued the campaign. We had another friend that wanted to join the game, but we didn't want to run 2 games at the same time. Well, you could have always just introduced him as a new character in the current campaign. I mean, that's always a viable option. After we all died and one of the 4 player characters got away, I asked the DM why he decided to kill us at the end of the campaign, and after arguing over answers like, "Why not?" and "Because I did it like that," the DM spoke out and said to me that he wanted to have some fun in the game. That for me really devalued everything we did during the campaign, since the DM just wanted to have some fun and kill us all. Taking underpowered encounters and making them overpowered for your players isn't a nice experience, especially when you do that very much with the intention of killing them. For me, it took the fun out of this campaign, and doesn't really motivate me to keep playing with him as a DM. For the next campaign, we as a group decided that I should DM, and I don't want to make the same mistakes he did, even though it would satisfy me a lot to make his player character suffer the same fate at the end of the campaign as ours did. Did I overreact, or was he in the wrong running the BBEG fight like that? I will never understand the concept of a DM not having fun unless they are actively trying to kill the characters. If that's how you look at DMing, then you probably shouldn't be a DM. A good DM finds joy in challenging the players, giving them clues and hooks, and seeing how they interact with the world that the DM created or is running. In my eyes, the only way a DM wins D&D is if, at the end of the day, everyone at the table has a good time creating a story together. So I agree with OP when he says that he doesn't want to play in a game with that dude as a DM again. But anyway, let's keep this story train rolling. The Tale of the Cursed Dice by Reddit user Z the Wise. I'm sure every group has a set of dice that they consider unlucky, and my group has one that we call the Cursed Set. They are a rather unassuming set of brown wood stain colored dice. The strange part is that they just showed up one day. One of my friends has a tin of dice, sets missing a die or 2, bulk dice, etc. So at first, we thought this set came from there. Only I get bored and sort out this tin on occasion, and they were never a part of it. Now, as for the reason we call this set cursed, is due to the first time they were used, after just showing up. That player's character died. Then, the first time our DM used them, it was almost a TPK with all the high rolls and crits, and he rolls in the open as a way to build tension and to prove that he's not fudging numbers. We now isolate this set, but keep it around as a strange memento and set piece. Well, that sure is strange. Perhaps anti-RNGesus showed up and bestowed upon you the Brood dice, cursed to destroy all player characters, until they are cast into the dice forge that created them in hell. Or it's just someone's dice that they left there and forgot about. Occam's razor leads me to believe that it's the latter, though it's still an amusing story nonetheless. Do you have any dice that you considered to be cursed? If so, be sure to tell us about it in the comments. Let's move on. Not safe for work. A group of innocent minors and at least one SA survivor get porn bombed by a pedophile player in a PG-13 server. By Reddit user Consort Wisdom. This is a tale of my extremely toxic ex-server. The cast. Me, 16-year-old to 17-year-old female at the time of the story. Pedo, problem player, male, late 20s. Pedo bait, pedo's character, 6-month-old female. Context. In my old server, moderators were kings. If you were friends with the mods, you got away with harassment, bullying, and other fun little things. But the most disgusting thing they still defend to their dying breath is pedo's character, who I will be calling Pedo Bait. The server was supposed to be PG-13, meaning limited sexual jokes, especially as a lot of player members, myself being an SA survivor, were sensitive to not safe for work content. Today, I shall give an overview of how Pedo accidentally flashed porn of his character for all unsuspecting eyes to see. Horror story. Pedo Bait was a 6-month-old clone of her mother, one that was built oddly. Pedo's character had large voluptuous breasts that almost showed her nipples from her torn crop top with a giant triangle boob window. Her giant hips were barely concealed by loosely fitting jeans, and she had this habit of being sporadic and horny. She was known to try to f*** anything she thought interesting, including my character, and in a public RP channel, with Pedo knowing full well that I was a minor. This particular instance, me and some other younger members were faffing about in a small RP room, just minding our own business, when suddenly Pedo drops a picture in the channel. It was Pedo Bait spread-eagled, with nothing concealed, and with a tentacle inching towards her, and a blush on her underage face. Few cries of horror from me and the other players, as the picture was eventually deleted. One close buddy of the moderators piped in to tell us, "Chill out guys, it was an accident." I ended up having to step away for a half hour or so to calm my impending panic attack. When I got back to my computer, I saw that Pedo's punishment was to be, he chose to leave the server until the end of an in-real-life vacation he was on. I don't need to explain why this ruffled quite a few feathers, but the mods only said, "He didn't mean it, it was an accident, he's sorry," etc, etc, etc. Curious, I dug back and saw Pedo saying in the channel, "I guess I'll kill myself now," and other self-deprecating things in response to the anger at his misposting something so disgusting. This flipped quite a few hearts over to his side, as a lot of the players were between 12 and 15. Does this sound like an overreaction? Maybe, but later I found out that he had an entire Twitter dedicated to smutty pictures of Pedo Bait. I also knew for a fact that Pedo himself considered Pedo Bait underage when he inadvertently revealed that there was an adult version of his character. And still, the mods didn't care. I also found out that in other servers, Pedo Bait was used in many a smut RPs. Pedo even invited his smut buddy over to the server, having a pregnant Pedo Bait in an RP gush about her boyfriend's baby batter. When I said this didn't seem very PG-13, I was promptly told that it wasn't that big of a deal. The lesson this taught me was that pedophilia is okay if the character's body is adult, but her mentality is young, and sex in a PG-13 server with teenagers is okay to talk about if you have the golden ticket of moderator approval. Holy God, what the hell is wrong with those moderators? That guy definitely seemed really sus with all of that, and being in a PG-13 server with young teens should be a huge red flag. Thankfully, it sounds like OP is not in that server anymore, And this is just a reminder that there are a lot of twisted individuals out there, and to always stand your ground when dealing with people like that. But after that story, I think we are in a great need for a kitty intermission. Ah, there we go. Nothing like kitties to heal the psychic damage that some of these stories induce. Now, I think we are ready for more. So, let's mosey. A paladin who's not lawful stupid? Ew. By Reddit user NoHat5730. This was close to 20 years ago, so details will be sparse. I was playing 3.0 as part of a college gaming group who gathered weekly. I don't remember all the classes, but there was a centaur fighter and a human ranger, and I was the paladin in this group. The incident in question started when we were fighting some evil wraith-like entity. I don't remember what it actually was, who was a servant of the BBEG for the campaign. During the fight, the centaur was able to use his spear to pin the baddie to the wall. Then my turn came up, and since it was pinned and helpless, I dared to do the unthinkable. I performed a coup de grace. Needless to say, the fight was over right there. Everyone in the party got mad at me for doing such a dishonorable move. Paladins are supposed to be all about fair fights, and would never do such a thing. They even tried to convince the DM to remove my status as a paladin for it. Fortunately, the DM shut that down, saying that I was justified since the enemy we fought was evil. The campaign broke up a few weeks later, for other reasons, and we never did see the BBEG. While sure, most paladins are lawful good, but that doesn't mean that a character would see an evil being that is presumably responsible for many evil acts in a position of weakness and think, "Oh, I can't hit them now. I have to wait until they are more of a threat." Like OP said in the title, there's a difference between honor and stupidity. Let's move on. Who brings a knife to a gunfight? By Reddit user Fresco Pastorito. A long-time lurker on this wonderful sub here. I've been playing various tabletop RPGs for many years, and somehow I managed to avoid the vast majority of ridiculous shit that has been posted here on a regular basis. My characters have never been molested, and for the most part, the games I participated in were free of rules lawyers and long disputes over rules or whatnot. But I want to share with you how I was unfortunate enough to participate in an RPG horror story anyway. So, I joined an online GURPS 4E group. The party consisted of random people, and we were about to start a mafia game set in the late 1920s United States. So, I was expecting the Great Depression, jazz, and prohibition stuff, and was very excited to join the campaign, as that's not exactly a very popular setting in tabletop RPGs. The GM described the game as being very grounded and realistic, so everyone would die in a single shot. Cool, huh? Now, here's the thing. None of us were American, so we didn't know how exactly the firearms regulation works in the United States. But I always thought that carrying and owning guns was 100% legal in America. Again, mobsters ought to have guns anyway, right? Anyway, Session 0 starts. We create our characters, and when I get to equipping myself, I announce that my character has a revolver. Suddenly, the GM tells me that we're not allowed to have any firearms, because according to him, it is illegal in the States. I try to reason that having firearms has to be legal in the States, and that it would be a very strange gang without any guns. Like, are we really supposed to fight other mobsters and the police with our bare fists and knives? The dispute goes on, and the GM tells me that somehow it was an alternate universe United States, where carrying a gun was illegal. Finally, I give up and agree to have knuckles and a knife. A few days later, the first session starts, and without getting too much into detail, I end up having a meeting with another gang member at a local seaport 1 hour into the game. As I was sort of the face of the group, I start negotiating, and all of a sudden, the bastards pull out Thompsons and shoot me dead. Well, I was frustrated, to say the least. I was like, firearms are illegal, huh? The GM ignores my rants, and a fight starts. Suddenly, all other party members somehow have guns and Thompsons, and it turns out I was the only idiot who brought knuckles and a knife to a gunfight. I said, firearms are illegal my ass, or something like that, and just left the group. After all, no RPG is better than bad RPG, right? TLDR. The GM tells me that firearms are illegal in the United States. Turns out everyone has a gun in the setting, and I end up shot dead an hour into the game. Now, don't get me wrong. A game setting in an alternate 1920s USA with no guns does sound like an interesting concept. I mean, just imagine mobsters fighting each other with swords and magic spells. That would be pretty cool. But in this case, it sounds like that DM had it out for OP for some odd reason. Why else would he tell him no guns, only to allow the enemies and other players to have them? Good on OP for calling him out on their BS, and just up and leaving the game. On to the next one. Please don't make me watch this. By Reddit user Horror Throwaway 1234. This is my first time posting, and I just have a short story of my second time playing Curse of Strahd. I won't be getting into spoilers, and the only players who matter are the DM and his girlfriend. A group of 4 of us wanted to play, because all my groups sort of petered out, so DM offered to DM Curse of Strahd. At first, things were going fine. The first session seemed to go well, and we seemed to be doing fine for a bit, but then after we got past the prologue section, things got weird. NPCs blatantly flirting with the girlfriend's character, borderline sexual in nature. I'm no prude, but I certainly didn't feel comfortable. But I pushed through because these were my friends. It's not as if not safe for work wasn't something present in our friendship before, and I've watched the DM and his girlfriend flirt before, but this just seemed worse. Eventually, we met a group of people. We camped with them, and it led to the girlfriend flirting with one of the important people of the camp. And it was the same kind of sexual nature in the same session. I guess you can tell where this is leading. They proceeded to take up a good portion of the session role-playing the scene and leading to sex, which included dexterity checks. We continued playing for multiple sessions later, but eventually their not safe for work shenanigans in and out of game grated on me, and I sort of ghosted them, and then they removed me from their group and friends list. Not the worst story by far, but in hindsight, I put up with their not safe for work crap way too long, and I'm very much glad I have better people to play with now. Well, this certainly isn't the worst horror story by any stretch, but I still have some advice. Sure, the DM and his girlfriend playing out erotic roleplay in front of you is pretty weird and uncomfortable. But instead of just up and ghosting them after this incident, you should have first said something to them to let them know that it made you uncomfortable. That would give them a chance to make it right, and if they still kept it up after that, then I would leave. Remember, communication is one of the key factors of any successful tabletop RPG, or even friendship for that matter. Though, at least it does sound like OP did find more people to play with eventually. On to the next one. And as it is Friday, it's time to cap off this story train with a glory story. Paladin destroys a boss with a Divine Smite crit. By Reddit user VicoK2001. So, we decided to have a short and late Halloween special, where the BBEG was a headless horseman. The gang had collected his head and were taking it to his tomb. Their plan was that the party would distract the really strong headless horseman while the rogue put the head back in its tomb, putting him back to rest. Here comes the special part. A new player had just joined, and it was his first time playing D&D. We helped him create a paladin, and for balance, I let him level it up to level 3. They went through a short dungeon, started the boss fight, and on the player's first turn, he uses Divine Smite and rolls a natural 20. He also rolled amazing for damage, getting 20 total damage, doubling it since the horseman was vulnerable to radiant, and doubled again because of the crit. Everyone else had done less than 10 damage per turn, and the new player decimates the boss with 80 damage. The rogue didn't even get the chance to put the head back into the tomb. Well, that certainly is a way to introduce a new player to D&D. It looks like RNGesus blessed him that day. Plus, I can imagine how the narrative was in character. A group of traveling adventurers welcomes a new party member, and the first thing that party member does is this. I imagine those characters were just like, damn. But that is all the time we have for today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. Until next time.